Chapter 6, Strength and Weakness. Sun Tzu said, "Those who arrive early on the battlefield and wait for their enemy remain rested, while those who arrive late and rush into battle are exhausted. Therefore, skilled warriors lead their enemies to action but are not led by them. To make the enemy come to you, present them with advantages. To prevent them from approaching, create obstacles. Exhaust an enemy that is well rested, starve them when they are well fed, and disrupt their comfort when they are at ease. Strike where they do not anticipate, and move where they least expect." Traveling vast distances without fatigue is possible by avoiding densely occupied areas. Success in attack comes from targeting unguarded positions. Success in defense comes from holding ground the enemy does not attack. Skilled attackers make it impossible for their enemies to predict their targets, and skilled defenders make their positions unfathomable. Their movements are subtle and invisible, their actions quiet and imperceptible, gaining complete control over the enemy's fate. Advance in a way that leaves no room for resistance. Strike where the enemy is weak. Retreat in a way that cannot be pursued. Move swiftly and out of reach. If I want to fight, even a well-fortified enemy cannot avoid battle because I will target what they must protect. If I do not wish to fight, even a weak defensive position will prevent the enemy from engaging because I will disrupt their plans. By revealing their form while concealing my own, I remain focused while the enemy is divided. My forces are unified, while the enemy is split into 10 groups. This allows me to concentrate 10 against 1, ensuring my strength outmatches theirs. Victory comes from overwhelming the few with the many. If my battlefield remains unknown, the enemy must prepare for everything, which spreads their forces thin and weakens their positions. When the enemy prepares for the front, their rear is left vulnerable. If they prepare for the rear, the front becomes weak. Focusing on one side leaves another exposed. A well-prepared force is everywhere weak. Those who scatter their forces to cover all possibilities become few in strength, while those who force the enemy to spread out remain strong. Knowing where and when to fight allows armies to converge even from 1,000 miles away. Without such knowledge, even nearby forces cannot support each other. If the distance is a mere few miles or dozens, their inability to aid one another renders them powerless. Therefore, even if the enemy is numerous, their numbers offer no advantage if they are poorly coordinated. Victory depends not on size but on unity. Strategic calculations reveal opportunities for success. Understanding the dynamics of motion and stillness allows you to anticipate the enemy's actions. Analyzing the battlefield's shape reveals the terrain for life or death. Comparing strengths and weaknesses identifies areas of surplus and deficiency. The ultimate form of strategy lies in formlessness. When your plans are invisible, even the wisest cannot predict them, and the cleverest cannot counter them. Though others may see the methods of my victories, they cannot comprehend the strategy behind them. My victories are unique and ever adaptable, responding to endless variations in the battlefield. The nature of warfare resembles water. Just as water flows away from heights and seeks the lowest ground, an army avoids strength and strikes at weakness. Water adapts to the terrain, and so must an army adapt to its enemy. Therefore, there is no fixed strategy in warfare. Just as the seasons change, the length of the days varies and the moon goes through phases of waxing and waning. 1. The Battle of Hansando, 1592. Exploiting the enemy's weaknesses. During the Battle of Hansando, Admiral Yi carefully analyzed and exploited the weaknesses of the Japanese fleet despite their numerical superiority. Overconfidence of the enemy. The Japanese Navy, led by Toyotomi Hideyoshi's forces, was overconfident in its strength. They believed that their superior numbers and heavy warships would easily overwhelm the Korean fleet. This overconfidence allowed Yi to deceive and lead them into unfavorable positions. Vulnerability of large ships. The Japanese fleet relied on large, heavy ships that were not as maneuverable as the smaller, faster Korean ships. Yi's forces, which included the iconic turtle ships, Geobuxion, had the advantage of speed and maneuverability, especially in narrow waters. This allowed them to outmaneuver the larger, slower Japanese ships. Admiral Yi understood that the Japanese fleet was most vulnerable in its overconfidence and its reliance on larger, slower ships. By exploiting these weaknesses, he set the stage for his victory. using deception and staying unpredictable. Yi Sun Sin's use of deception and unpredictability was a key element of his strategy during the Battle of Hansando. Luring the enemy into a trap, Yi's forces initially retreated and appeared to be fleeing, which lulled the Japanese fleet into a sense of superiority. The Japanese pursued, believing they had cornered the Koreans. However, Yi had planned this retreat as a way to lure the Japanese into a position where they would be vulnerable to attack. Ambush. Once the Japanese fleet entered the narrow waters near Hansen Island, Yi's fleet launched a surprise counterattack, ambushing the Japanese in a position where their large ships could not maneuver effectively. This was in line with Sun Tzu's principle of striking where the enemy does not expect. The unpredictability of Yi's movements and his ability to deceive the Japanese fleet into thinking they were victorious until the right moment for a counterattack was a key factor in his success. 3. Adapting to the situation. One of Sun Tzu's key principles is the ability to adapt to the changing dynamics of the battlefield. Yi Sun Sin demonstrated exceptional adaptability during the battle, using terrain to advantage. Um, the battle took place near the narrow waters of Hansan Island. The Japanese fleet, with its large ships, was at a disadvantage in such tight spaces, while Yi's smaller, more maneuverable ships could easily outflank them. Yi adapted to the terrain, using it to his advantage by drawing the Japanese fleet into a position where they could not escape. Effective use of turtle ships. The turtle ships, which were heavily armored and equipped with cannons, were a perfect match for the conditions of the battle. They allowed Yi's forces to attack the Japanese fleet at close range, effectively neutralizing the Japanese superiority in numbers. Yi's ability to assess and adapt to the changing conditions of the battlefield, particularly the narrow waters and the Japanese fleet's reliance on large ships, played a crucial role in the outcome of the battle. 4. Defeating a larger force with a smaller one. Despite being outnumbered, Yi Sun Sin's forces achieved a decisive victory by exploiting the weaknesses of the larger Japanese fleet. The Japanese were expecting a quick victory, but Yi's tactical brilliance and ability to turn the situation to his advantage led to a crushing defeat for the Japanese. Overcoming numerical superiority. The Japanese fleet had roughly 130 ships, while Yi's fleet numbered about 50. However, through the effective use of smaller, more agile ships, and by outmaneuvering and ambushing the Japanese, Yi was able to decisively defeat a fleet that was more than twice the size of his own. Tactical innovation. Yi's use of the crane wing formation, a tactic that surrounds and isolates enemy ships, and the turtle ships, close-range cannon fire was innovative and made it nearly impossible for the Japanese to effectively respond. Yi's victory at Hansando was a clear example of how a smaller force could overcome a much larger one by exploiting weaknesses, using deception, and adapting to the situation. Conclusion. The Battle of Hansando exemplifies the core principles of the art of war, particularly the concepts of exploiting the enemy's weaknesses, staying unpredictable, and adapting to the circumstances. By using deceptive tactics, taking advantage of terrain, and maintaining flexibility in his strategy, Admiral Yi Sun Sin was able to defeat a numerically superior enemy. This battle demonstrates how intelligence, adaptability, and superior strategy can allow a smaller force to achieve victory over a larger, more powerful one. In this way, Yi Sun Sin's victory is a timeless example of Sun Tzu's teachings applied in real-life warfare. 2. Key insights and summary. Sun Tzu teaches that success in battle comes from exploiting the enemy's weaknesses and hiding your own strengths. By staying unpredictable, using deception, and adapting to the situation, a smaller force can overcome a larger one. Note, if you find the original text too long and convoluted, it is sufficient to focus on actual examples and summaries. The current version of The Art of War is often intertwined with commentary, making it difficult to separate the two. For instance, this chapter includes a discussion of the five elements, Wu Xing, but the concept of their mutual generation, the cycle of creation, did not appear until centuries after Sun Tzu's death. While there may be some debate about the timing of the introduction of this concept, it is clear that the original text of The Art of War lacks consistency in some parts.